Welcome to the Deep Dive. If you've ever wondered why some old corporate slogan is still stuck in your head, or why your phone screen just keeps showing you content you swear you hate. Well, today we are pulling back the curtain on the hidden mechanics of influence. This deep dive is all about the forces that shape what we believe, how we consume, and, really, how organizations behave. We're starting way back in the 1920s with psychological manipulation and taking it right up to today's algorithms. Our mission today is, well, it's pretty sweeping. We're unpacking the whole evolution of public relations, PR.
From its very shadowy origins in, let's be honest, raw corporate propaganda.
Right. All the way to what it means to practice modern, ethical, strategic communication. And across all our sources, one big theme just keeps coming up.
The battle for your attention.
Exactly. It's this high-stakes battle that really defines who succeeds and who fails in the modern world.
And that battle, that's the key to understanding everything we're looking at here. I mean, we've seen a fundamental shift in the whole landscape of communication. Well, historically, organizations were dealing with information scarcity. They just needed a way to get their message out.
But now we're just overwhelmed.
Completely. We live in an era of attention scarcity. The Nobel laureate, Herbert Simon, put it perfectly. He said attention is what information consumes. So when you're drowning in data, the entire system, from corporate messaging to social media, is built to consume the one thing you have that's actually limited.
Your focus. So to get how this fight for focus even started, we have to go back to the early 20th century. And we can begin with a guy named Ivy Ledbetter Lee.
Right. Lee was essential. He was one of the first to try and move the game away from what was called press agentry, which had just a terrible reputation.
You wanted to make it more strategic.
Exactly. Lee's legacy is really about building corporate reputation through what he called effective communication. He wasn't perfect, not by a long shot, but he was crucial during things like the big coal strikes.
He focused on goodwill and trust.
He tried to. He pushed for transparency and corporate accountability, trying to professionalize the field and make PR a respected practice.
So Lee gets the conversation started, but the real paradigm shift, the one that's still echoing in our digital feeds, came from Edward Bernays.
Father of PR.
Now what's so wild about him is his background. He was Sigmund Freud's nephew.
And that family connection is everything. Bernays was completely steeped in Freud's ideas about the unconscious mind. He paired that with ideas from crowd psychologists, people studying group behavior.
He saw what he was doing as something much bigger than just advertising.
Oh, much bigger. He thought advertising was just crass special pleading. He saw the Public Relations Council as an Emersonian-like creator of events, someone who could influence all of society by speaking directly to our subconscious.
That sounds heavy. It sounds like straight-up manipulation, which gets us to his most famous technique, the engineering of consent. And this wasn't about winning a logical argument. This was about convincing the unconscious mind, using psychology, influencing people without them even knowing they were being pushed into something. So how on earth did he justify that? Professionalizing manipulation.
Well, his reasoning was utilitarian and, frankly, pretty disturbing. He argued the public was fundamentally irrational. They were all driven by base instincts and crowd behavior.
So for democracy to even work,
it needed an invisible government of experts, the PR counselors, to steer the masses toward outcomes that were good for society, or at least good for his clients. It's a very paternalistic view that justified basically any means to guide public perception.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting, because the real-world examples of his work are just shocking. The most famous one has to be his campaign to make smoking acceptable for women.
Oh, the Torches of Freedom campaign, yes. This wasn't just an ad, it was a fully staged event.
During an Easter parade in 1929.
Right. He paid debutantes to dramatically light up cigarettes in public. He framed the cigarettes as symbolic torches of freedom, linking smoking directly to women's liberation.
And he also pushed the idea that smoking helped you lose weight.
He was selling an entire cultural shift, not just nicotine. He was engineering a behavior.
Wow, so he's co-opting the language of social progress to sell a product we now know is incredibly harmful. That's staggering.
It is.
He didn't just sell products, he created what our sources call the consumerist psyche.
Exactly. The system that plays on our irrational desires instead of our actual needs, forcing us into this cycle of continuous consumption, always chasing a feeling of inadequacy.
It's like something out of a dystopian novel.
It really is. It echoes Aldous Huxley's warnings that control wouldn't come from pain, but from fabricated pleasures and endless distractions.
Yeah.
That psychological foundation targeting our irrational desires, that's the blueprint for the entire modern attention economy.
So if Bernays was fighting for our irrational desire back in the 20s, today's battlefield is all about seconds of our screen time. We talked about that scarcity shift. Information is everywhere, so attention is the real currency.
And we have to understand that attention isn't like money you can save up. It's a flow currency. You use it or you lose it. And critically, it's biologically limited.
There's a real cost every time you switch your focus.
Absolutely. The part of our brain that manages this is the insula. You can think of it as the brain's air traffic controller. And if you force it to switch between tasks and notifications and apps too quickly, it gets overloaded.
And that's when you get that feeling, that sort of dizziness or mental fatigue after you've been scrolling for a while.
Yeah, it's your brain hitting its biological limit. And this is the very limit that the algorithmic black box is being optimized against.
So platforms like TikTok, YouTube, X, they've reshaped everything.
They surgically determine who sees what, turning our attention into a massive commercial asset.
The revolutionary change, and our sources point to TikTok's For You page, just transformed this whole dynamic. Before, you saw what your friends posted.
It was network-based.
Now you don't need a network at all. The algorithm uses these really sophisticated deep learning and reinforcement learning models. Okay, for those of us who aren't coders, what is reinforcement learning here?
It just means the system is learning by trial and error. It gets little rewards for making correct predictions. It tracks huge amounts of data every millisecond you pause on a video, every share.
Every single interaction.
And it trains itself to maximize one thing and one thing only: engagement. Its only goal is to keep your eyes on the screen, optimizing for your next one, not for what you actually want.
And the consequences of optimizing purely for engagement, that gets us to the engagement trap. This is where the societal cost gets really clear.
Right.
Algorithmic audits have found that when you rank content just to maximize engagement, it tends to amplify stuff that's emotionally charged, often hostile toward an outgroup.
Which makes users feel more negative about their political opponents.
And what's so fascinating is the psychological gap this shows. The researchers call it the gap between revealed preference and stated preference.
Let's unpack that.
Revealed preference is what you actually click on. Stated preference is what you say you want to see. So if this angry content makes us feel worse, why does the algorithm keep feeding it to us? Why do we click on it?
The thinking is it's often driven by these momentary psychological impulses. A quick hit of outrage or anxiety. The machine is brilliant at spotting that and feeding it. You click because it triggers a strong, immediate reaction.
The revealed preference.
But you might regret it later, or say you'd prefer calmer, more informative content. That's the stated preference. The machine is built for the impulse, not the informed desire.
So that raises a huge question. If ranking content by our stated preferences would reduce all the angry partisan stuff, why isn't that just the default?
Well, the simple answer is that engagement is profit, but it's also a complex trade-off. Ranking by stated preference might reduce hostility toward your opponents, but at the same time, it might increase your exposure to content that just reinforces what you already believe.
So we trade polarization for even deeper echo chambers. It feels like we're caught between two bad options for filtering information.
It's a huge problem. On an individual level, though, we can try to fight back against that cognitive load. Watzel's work suggests a practical strategy he calls offloading.
Offloading.
If an important thought pops into your head while you're focused on something, just write it down immediately. A notebook, sticky note, that gets it out of your working memory.
So you can finish your current thought without the mental burden of trying to hold on to the new one.
Exactly. It frees up your insula.
So given this whole history, from sophisticated psychological campaigns to attention hacking, the role of genuine ethical communication is more critical than ever.
The PRSA defines PR as a process that builds mutually beneficial relationships between organizations and their publics.
And the ideal there is striving for what's called symmetrical internal communication.
Which means organizations manage their own behavior.
Yeah.
They actively listen and respond to the public, rather than just trying to control or manipulate what people think.
But there's a danger there, isn't there, that companies will just use a pseudo-symmetrical model.
Absolutely. And that's when a company just creates the appearance of being responsible and engaged. They use all the right language, but they have no real intention of changing their unethical behavior.
And that kind of inauthenticity is just fatal today.
It is. Ethical marketing has to be rooted in real action, in honesty, and the market rewards that. Our sources show 42% of consumers are more likely to buy from brands that align with their values.
It's that higher level psychological need, the identity that Bernays was trying to fake.
And we have great long-term examples. Look at Dove's Real Beauty campaign. It's run for 2 decades. It built loyalty by genuinely challenging unrealistic beauty standards.
Or TLMS shoes. They pioneered that one-for-one model.
And what's key there is they evolved. They listened to criticism and changed their impact model, inviting customers to be part of it. They showed they were responsive.
And the opposite is also true. Failing to be honest, especially with greenwashing, has severe consequences.
That's when the company just misleads everyone about its environmental practices.
And the cost is massive. Loss of credibility, litigation,
Irreparable reputational damage. Look at Deutsche Bank's asset management arm getting investigated for misleading investors about their green investments. That kind of scandal erodes decades of trust overnight.
This focus on integrity really brings us to crisis management because often it's less about the incident itself and more about how you handle it.
The handling is everything.
When Tesla had those Model S fires, Elon Musk didn't hide. He personally led the response, published a statement with hard data, analyzing the statistics on car safety.
The timing and the authority of the messenger were just perfect.
Compare that to Jet2, when they faced a crisis over their CEO's actions. They skipped the traditional press entirely.
And went straight to TikTok. They engaged with the ridicule and transformed it into positive momentum. That agility is the modern differentiator.
And then you have the poor responses, like with Brewdog or the Rubiales incident with the Spanish Football Federation.
Delayed, unapologetic, dismissive.
It severely damaged their reputations and forced leaders to step down. The lesson is that integrity and admitting wrongdoing quickly aren't optional anymore. They're table stakes for survival.
And this clarity, it even extends down to internal communication. We have data that shows the channel you use to communicate has to align with your rank and role.
So for a day-to-day manager talking to their team,
face-to-face communication has the strongest positive impact. It builds direct trust and rapport.
but interestingly, for the CEO communicating from the top down, email and phone calls were actually found to be more effective.
Right, and the why makes sense. A manager is building relationships. A CEO needs to establish formality and reach everyone clearly and quickly, often with a paper trail.
So the medium really does have to match the messenger.
Exactly. Strategy has to optimize for it.
So we've covered, what, a century of influence? From Ivy Lee trying to manage labor disputes to Bernays engineering our desires, all the way to the algorithms that now filter our reality.
It's quite a journey.
And whether it's a 1920s PR campaign or a 2025 deep learning model, the goal is always the same: guiding perception. But today, the speed and the design of these platforms mean that guidance often happens without our rational consent.
The enduring lesson through it all is crystal clear. The highest performing organizations, whether they're ethical companies or ones navigating a crisis, they all prioritize authenticity, rapid responsiveness, and communication that is clearly aligned with their values.
Anything less, any attempt at that pseudo-symmetrical model
Risks not just your reputation, but total collapse in a world of informed scrutiny.
So if attention is truly the most valuable currency you possess, the one thing algorithms are designed to consume, what responsibility do you have in choosing where to invest in? Especially knowing that the systems selecting content for you are often choosing what maximizes their profit, not what you consciously prefer.